On the 10th year of fulfilling the marriage contract on behalf of my runaway sister, just because I sat on the chair she liked the most, I was pushed off a 3-story building by the child she left behind. My spine was broken and covered in blood. I begged him to call for help, but he sneered at me just like his father did. "You don't even deserve to use my mother's things. I'm telling you, you can never replace her. You still want someone to save you. I want to watch you become disabled and let my father kick you out of the house." I looked at this child, whom I had taken care of since he was in swaddling clothes, in disbelief. My heart ached as if being tortured. After being rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment, I dialed a phone number abroad. "Professor, I'm willing to go abroad." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Just as I finished the call, Gerald, my parents, and Jeffrey, who had a disgruntled expression, walked in. Jeffrey stared at me viciously. "Why should I apologize to this bitch? She sat on my mother's chair first. I just called out to her, and she was so scared that she fell off the building. There wasn't even any blood on her. I thought she was just acting again to deceive me." The more he spoke, the more unpleasant his words became, but none of the people beside him stopped him. They just looked at me coldly, their faces full of reproach. But I didn't defend myself as I used to. I just stared blankly out the window. Gerald, however, rebuked me. "Helen, the child is talking to you, but you don't even look at him. Is this how you act as a mother?" I sneered. "Which child, upon seeing his own mother injured, doesn't even show a bit of concern and keeps swearing instead?" Gerald's dissatisfaction grew deeper. "That's because you haven't been good enough to Jeffrey. You often pretend to be pitiful to deceive him. Not good enough." Jeffrey had congenital deficiencies and often got sick. It was me who took care of him day and night. I learned acupuncture, massage, and how to cook nourishing soups and medicinal diets, and I became proficient in all of them. My slender fingers that used to play the piano became rough and swollen. When Jeffrey said he felt insecure, I stayed by his side without sleeping for 3 days and 3 nights. Unfortunately, Gerald couldn't see all these efforts, nor could Jeffrey. Gerald was still lecturing me. "Helen, when you married into her family, I only had one request for you, which was to take good care of Jeffrey. Is that so difficult? If you can't do it well, let's get divorced. If you want a divorce, then let's get one. I don't want to be my wife anymore." Gerald stared at me in surprise, as if he didn't expect me to say such a thing. Well, after all, this marriage was something her family had begged for. When Ashley fulfilled the marriage contract and married Gerald, her first love returned from abroad. Ashley disappeared without a trace after giving birth to the child. Her family was furious, and my parents tricked me, who was still studying for a doctorate abroad. Back home, they drugged me and sent me to Gerald's bed. The incident caused a big commotion, and with Jeffrey still a baby in need of care, Gerald had no choice but to marry me. However, we also made an agreement with a time limit of only 10 years. Once Jeffrey grew up, he would divorce me, but every time we quarreled, he would threaten me with divorce. Since that was the case, then let's get divorced. My parents, however, were the first to be outraged. "Helen, what are you talking nonsense? How can you get a divorce? If you leave, who will take care of Jeffrey?" Their extremely disappointed faces were the same as when I refused to give up the marriage for Ashley. When the marriage contract was made with her family, my mother was pregnant with me, so the person for the marriage alliance was naturally me. But later, Ashley was heartbroken by her first love and married out of spite. With just a word from my parents, I was asked to give up the marriage. Seeing that I didn't speak, my parents quickly added, "All right, this time you're also injured. We won't make you apologize to Jeffrey either. If you soften your attitude, we'll give you the key to the house, and you can come back whenever you want." After I married into the Gerald family and became the stepmother, they took away the key to my home. They also informed the security guards and the driver that I wasn't allowed to enter the house unless I was with Jeffrey. "Helen, only when you have no home and no way out will you treat the Gerald family as your own home and Jeffrey as your own child." Later, even when I was driven out of the house by Gerald, who took his anger out on me, I begged at the door all night in the cold and rainy night, but they didn't let me in. Seeing that I didn't speak, Gerald thought I was moved. He said condescendingly, "All right. It's not a serious injury. Don't be angry anymore. When you recover, I'll take you to take wedding photos." Over the years, I didn't even have a single group photo with him. Even if we were accidentally photographed together at a gathering, he would angrily scold me. But now, I don't want either family affection or love. I said indifferently, no need. I'll be leaving next month. The ward instantly fell into a deathly silence. But soon, the anger of my parents and Gerald swept over. Listen to what you're saying. What kind of words are these? Jeffrey is going to participate in the Olympiad in mathematics in a month. If you leave, who will take care of him and teach him? How can you, as a mother, be so heartless and abandon the child just to get back at us? A mother. I looked at Jeffrey over there, and his eyes were full of resentment. For 10 years, he only ever called me Aunt Helen. In the past 2 years, he didn't even have a name for me and just called me a bitch. When Jeffrey first started learning to talk, he did call me Mom. But when Gerald heard it, he flew into a rage instantly. He not only snatched the child away, but also drove me out of the house. Don't waste your efforts. Jeffrey will only have one mother in his life. Even though Ashley abandoned him, she was still the only one in Gerald's heart. Later, whenever Jeffrey called me Mom, he would be lectured by Gerald. For 10 years, I lived like a nanny. But soon, everything would come to an end. I came back to my senses and looked at my parents and Gerald. You said that I only deserved to occupy this position for 10 years. Now that the time is up, it's time for me to leave. My parents looked at me with a look of hating iron for not becoming steel. No one is driving you away. Why are you bringing this up? As always, they were only worried that the in-law relationship with the Gerald family would be severed and their business would suffer losses. Gerald, on the other hand, didn't look as relieved as I had expected. He frowned. What kind of reason is that? If you begged me a little, would I really drive you away? All right. If you're worried about what others will say, I'll just post something on Moments, saying that you'll be my wife from now on. Although he agreed to let me in the house at the beginning, Gerald didn't even hold a wedding for me. When his friends or business partners came to the house, he would just casually introduce me as someone who warms the bed and takes care of the child. Everyone knew that I was just a canary who failed to climb into his bed. I had a good life for 10 years by relying on him, and once the time limit was up, I would be kicked out of the house. But what I cared about wasn't a title. I replied indifferently. The doctor said that I might be disabled this time. A woman with a limp doesn't deserve to be my wife, nor does she deserve to raise the next heir of his family. Gerald heaved a sigh of relief. Why are you worried about these things? With me around, who would dare to gossip about you? Besides, with the financial resources of the Gerald family, can't we hire a good doctor for you? He looked as if he had expected this, thinking that I was just being angry and trying to be difficult. He continued on his own. All right. Stop talking angry words. You've been a housewife for 10 years. After leaving the Gerald family and her family, how will you live outside? Since you care so much, I'll ask my secretary to buy you a diamond ring later. We'll have a family dinner, and you'll be my wife. As for making it public, don't even think about it. What if Ashley sees it and refuses to come back? After saying that, he left with my parents and Jeffrey. He only left the secretary to deal with the matters regarding my treatment. Oh, and that ring given as charity. The secretary also had a superior attitude. Miss Helen, Mr. Gerald has only approved a budget of 1 million yuan for the ring, so we can only buy a ready-made one. If you don't know about these things, just choose the most expensive one. I'm doing you a favor by telling you that the jewelry counts as your personal property. Gerald thought that I was a vain woman who had tried hard to climb into his bed, so he only allowed me to get a living expense of 3,000 yuan from the housekeeper every month. Naturally, the secretary also thought that it was a great favor for Gerald to give me 1 million yuan. But today, I accidentally sat on that chair, a chair specially customized for Ashley by a master. It cost 10 million yuan. In the master bedroom that I was never allowed to set foot in, there were things for Ashley worth no less than 1 billion yuan. I pushed away the tablet the secretary was using to show me the ring styles. You can choose it as you like. Anyway, that ring would be destroyed by Jeffrey in the end, just like all the things Gerald occasionally brought back for me, even if they were just some freebies. Moreover, I wouldn't wear it either. Just after I sent the secretary away, Jeffrey came back again. He opened the thermos box and splashed the boiling porridge at me. You'd better be smart and leave quickly. Otherwise, the next time I'll splash sulfuric acid at you. He didn't have much strength, so the porridge all splashed onto the quilt, and only some of it splashed onto my arm. Obviously, it was the porridge that I got up early in the morning to cook for him yesterday. But now, it was still scaldingly hot. When Jeffrey saw that my arm was red, he left satisfied. The nurse came to change my bedding and apply medicine to me. Before leaving, she hesitated for a moment, and finally said to me, "Some children just can't be tamed no matter how much you care for them." I looked down at the bandages all over my body, and tears couldn't stop falling. Yes, even an outsider could understand this, but I believed that sincerity could be exchanged for sincerity for 10 years. However, whether it was Gerald, who had been my childhood sweetheart, or Jeffrey, whom I had raised since he was a child, all I got in return for my sincerity was endless malice. I stayed in the hospital for more than half a month, and none of them came to visit me again. I hired a nurse and left the hospital in a wheelchair. When I went back to the Gerald family's house to get my things, I entered the door and saw those people who had ignored me all sitting in the living room, laughing and chatting merrily. The person surrounded in the middle was actually Ashley, who hadn't been heard from for 10 years. My parents hugged her tightly with red eyes. "Ashley, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. What do you want to eat? Mom and Dad will cook it for you." Jeffrey clung to her like a koala. "Mom, you're finally back. From now on, I'm no longer a child who has no one to care about." Gerald, who was as cold as an iceberg, also had a face full of joy. "Ashley, I knew that you definitely couldn't let go of me." They gathered around happily, as if the breakdown when Ashley left without a word was all fake. When my parents begged me to come back, one of them had a heart attack, and the other cried so much that their eyes were almost blind. They said that Ashley had no heart. I helped to rectify the company and resist the suppression from his family. After they sent me to Gerald's bed, even though I knew that the Gerald family might be a pit of fire, I still, out of their pleadings, entered the Gerald family. And Gerald, because of Ashley's departure, became decadent and withdrawn, drinking alcohol every day. I held Jeffrey and stayed by his side without leaving, helping him out of the darkness. He vowed to me that he would definitely live a good life with me in the future. As for Jeffrey, when he first learned that he was abandoned by Ashley, he was greatly shocked and cried day and night. It was only after I repeatedly promised that I would never leave him that he gradually became cheerful. But 10 years of painstaking efforts couldn't compare to Ashley's change of heart. The sound of my entering the house attracted everyone's attention. My parents said with an embarrassed expression, "Helen, why didn't you call in advance when you came back?" They had an expression as if I was out of place and had disturbed their family reunion. I retracted my gaze and instructed the nurse to push me upstairs. "I couldn't get in touch with you, so I couldn't call." During these days in the hospital, there were some places where the family members needed to sign. I called them hundreds of times, but no one answered. Also, regarding the arrangements for Jeffrey and Gerald's daily life after I left, the messages I sent also disappeared without a trace. But now, they were blaming me for not saying in advance. Gerald's face looked a bit unpleasant. "All right, it was just a momentary oversight. You should go upstairs and rest. You just came back, so don't get tired." When had he ever been so considerate? He was just worried that I would disturb his reunion with Ashley. But I didn't care about these things anymore. Jeffrey, however, spoke sarcastically behind me. "Just leave. My mom is back. You vulgar woman. You're not even worth a single finger of my mom." Ashley over there was dressed up beautifully, and she was so delicate that even her hair was perfect. And she had long manicured nails. Indeed, she looked much more beautiful than me in my plain face and a sweatshirt. But I only stopped dressing up after taking care of Jeffrey. It wasn't just that I didn't have the time. I was also worried that my long hair would get tangled around his tiny fingers. I was concerned that my long fingernails might poke his delicate little face. And I was afraid that the perfume and cosmetics would irritate him. However, Jeffrey didn't care about any of these things. I ignored him and went straight upstairs. My supervisor called and talked to me about the previous arrangements. Finally, he asked worriedly, "Helen, have you really thought this through? After all, that's the child you've raised for 10 years. And Gerald, the relationship you've had since childhood. It should only have grown deeper over the past 10 years. So what?" As soon as Ashley showed up, I had no place to belong here at all. I said firmly, "Professor, I've thought it through. I don't belong here." After hanging up the phone, I was silent for a long time. When I turned around, I saw Gerald, who had been standing there for I don't know how long. Seeing the panicked look on my face, Gerald sneered disdainfully. "All right, if you act any more, it'll be over the top. I made so much noise coming up here. And you're still pretending not to notice and talking on the phone like that. Just because Ashley's back. You're playing the game of running away from home with me, aren't you? Looking at his usual contempt, I felt a complex mix of emotions in my heart. Perhaps because I was about to leave, I thought of the past again. Gerald wasn't like this when he was a child. Back then, he trusted me unconditionally and followed me around. Even though my parents sent me to a boarding school 1,000 kilometers away from home because of Ashley, Gerald went on a hunger strike for 3 days and, at the risk of not getting his share of the family property, insisted that his family send him to my school. At that time, I thought that we could live happily ever after like in a fairy tale. Even though I longed for my parents' love in my heart, I fought desperately for the marriage contract with him. But when I finally managed to escape from the basement where my parents had imprisoned me, what I saw was him putting a ring on Ashley in a grandly decorated auditorium. My parents told me that I couldn't compare to Ashley. Only after Gerald realized this did he choose Ashley. I tried my best to tell myself that it wasn't true. But the smile on Gerald's face as he held Ashley couldn't be faked. Later, when my parents begged me to go to the Gerald family to clean up Ashley's mess, the moment I nodded, there was a bit of selfishness mixed in. I thought that Gerald and I could go back to the way we were before. But 10 years of sarcasm and ridicule have made me realize, in Gerald's eyes, there was indeed only Ashley. Dad, why did it take you so long to come up here and ask that bitch to cook? Mom is still hungry downstairs. Jeffrey's voice woke me up from my thoughts. Gerald in front of me glanced at me. All right, stop thinking about those petty tricks. Go and cook for Ashley. She specifically asked for the food you make. If you perform well, I can consider letting you stay here. I gripped the armrests of the wheelchair tightly, suppressing the anger in my heart. I'm in this state, and you want me to cook for Ashley? Jeffrey shrieked first. You bitch. It's just a minor injury, and you have to pretend to be so pitiful. Just a minor injury. The doctor said that if I had been half an hour later, I would have been permanently disabled. In Jeffrey's eyes, it was just a minor injury. Looking at the face that I had been with day and night for 10 years, it was now full of contempt and resentment towards me. I could no longer find the look of when he was a child, when he would hold me softly and say that he only wanted Aunt Helen. Jeffrey used to tell me every day that it must be God's mistake. The mother he chose in heaven was clearly me. Fortunately, God sent me back to his side. But I don't know when it started. He began to avoid me. Later, he looked at me like an enemy. However, all these entanglements were about to end. I suppressed my emotions. The two people in front of me looked like they wouldn't give up unless I cooked. A bitter feeling spread in my heart, and I said self-deprecatingly, "At least you can push me downstairs." Gerald sneered and called a servant to push me. Don't look for excuses to get close to me. When we got to the kitchen, Ashley swaggered in to order dishes, acting like the mistress of the house. Thank you, sister, for taking care of the Gerald family for me. When you leave, I'll ask Yunjo to give you more money. Just make the dishes casual today. You know my taste. Bird's nest porridge, braised sea cucumber, king crab. Just make them simple. The servant beside her said carefully, but these dishes are very complicated and will take a long time to make. It will take 4 or 5 hours just to prepare the ingredients. And you won't allow us to help. Ashley raised an eyebrow. Are you saying that I don't deserve to eat these? My parents' angry scolding came from outside. Helen, your sister just came back. Do you have to do this because of such a small thing? Even though I told myself repeatedly, facing their blatant favoritism, my heart still ached. However, this was the last time. I stared at Ashley. I'll be leaving tomorrow. You don't have to find ways to torture me anymore. Ashley's face lit up with joy. You said it yourself. I didn't drive you away. All right. Then let the servant help you. Ashley went out amidst the eager calls from the people outside. I started cooking under the pitying gazes of the servants. Although someone else took care of the ingredients, it was really difficult for me to operate while sitting in a wheelchair. I don't know how long it took, and my legs even started to ache faintly again. Only then was the table full of dishes finally finished. When I left the kitchen, the villa was quiet. The butler came and looked at me with an embarrassed expression. 3 hours ago, Miss Ashley said she wanted to eat snacks. So Mr. Genold and the others all went out. I wasn't even the least bit surprised by this scene. I just nodded softly and asked the servant to push me upstairs to pack my luggage. The next day, just as the sun was rising, the car that came to pick me up arrived. Just as the car was about to start, the driver exclaimed, "Whose child is that?" I leaned out to take a look. It was Jeffrey standing in front of the car. The little figure stood there with a cold and solemn expression. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes, which were all wrinkled. The morning air was still cold, and his small body was shivering in the cold wind. My heart softened, and just as I was about to speak, he interrupted me. Dad is right. You women just love to act. You must have sent someone to keep an eye on me. You knew I wanted to come back quietly to prepare a surprise for Mom. So you're putting on this act of leaving here. I'm telling you, I won't let you stay. Looking at his expression as if he had expected this, my heart completely turned cold. 10 years of time. It was all just an illusion. I instructed the driver. Let's go. As soon as the car started, I heard a commotion coming from behind. Jeffrey instructed the servants to throw out all the things I had used. As if he still wasn't satisfied, he picked up a stick and smashed those things fiercely. As the car drove away, Jeffrey and the Gerald family's villa gradually disappeared from my sight. I softly said goodbye. It wasn't them that I was saying goodbye to. It was the obsession that I had never let go of in the past 10 years. When I was about to board the plane, I took out my phone. I found that there were many calls from Gerald and my parents on my phone, which had been on silent, since they couldn't get through to me. My parents also sent a long string of messages. Helen, since Ashley is back, you should leave. The farther you go, the better. After all, this is Ashley's home. We'll let it go for the help you gave before, but it's really inappropriate for you to stay here now. After reading the message, I silently blocked them. As for Gerald, after thinking it over and over again, I still called him back. Helen, stop making trouble. I'll just buy you another set of the things that Jeffrey smashed for you. You're sitting in a wheelchair like this and can't do anything. How many days can you stay outside? Come back. The Gerald family can still afford to support you. Even now, he still thought that I was just trying to be difficult and throwing a tantrum. I chuckled softly. Gerald, do you think it sounds good for an elder sister to live in her brother-in-law's house? There was a moment of silence on the other end, and then he said indifferently, I'll just find you a fake marriage partner then. No one will gossip if we all live together as a family. How ridiculous. I laughed until tears came to my eyes. Gerald, I don't have to be with you. The announcement urging passengers to board the plane sounded at the airport. Gerald on the other end was a bit angry and frustrated. You've been with me for 10 years. Do you really think someone will want you if you go out? All right. Stop pretending at the airport. I'll give you an hour. Hurry up and come back to me. Ashley and Jeffrey are still waiting for you to cook for them. I hung up the phone without hesitation. I took out the SIM card and threw it into the trash can without hesitation. The plane took off and faced the brilliant morning sun above the clouds. In the orange-red light, I let out a deep breath. From now on, it will be a new life. The professor arranged for someone from the research institute to pick me up at the airport. He specifically told me that this person was now the pillar of the research institute. He would tell me about the latest research progress on the way. I just thought it was an honor given to me by the professor. Unexpectedly, it was someone I knew. I looked at my junior brother in front of me, who had long since lost his youthful look. His eyes were full of joy when he saw me. Malcolm handed the flowers to me. Senior sister, long time no see. Yes, it had been a long time. For 10 years, I had lived in the Gerald family's villa, which was like a cage. I never expected the power of 10 years to be so great. The junior brother who used to follow me and ask me all sorts of things was now the pillar of the research laboratory. My eyes turned red. Yes, junior brother, long time no see. But now I'm afraid I should call you Professor Malcolm. Malcolm smiled easily. Senior sister, don't make fun of me. If you hadn't left back then, it wouldn't have been my turn at all. It turned out that when my family forced me to give up the marriage contract with Gerald, it happened to be the crucial stage of a major project. I ran back without hesitation, but all I got was Gerald's change of heart. When I came back again, that project had also been completed. Fortunately, God showed mercy, and the research laboratory got another project. The professor specifically asked me to take the lead, as long as I made a breakthrough. My academic career in the future would be smooth sailing, but Ashley ran away. My parents threatened to die, and Gerald was indulging in decadence. In the end, I softened my heart. Once I went, I didn't expect it to be 10 years. Sitting in the car, I listened to Malcolm's detailed introduction, but I felt extremely unfamiliar with it. After being out of touch for 10 years, I was indeed too far away from this world. My former junior brother had become someone that I could only look up to. This made me even more surprised that the professor hadn't given up on me. He was willing to give me a chance to come back. I looked at Malcolm and said with difficulty, "Professor Malcolm, I don't quite understand." Malcolm was taken aback, and then he smiled easily. "Senior sister, don't call me that. It makes me feel several years older all of a sudden. If it's not convenient for you to call me junior brother in the institute, you can just call me Malcolm." Looking at his bright smile, I felt even more dejected. In the institute, with my current level, I'm afraid I won't be able to go back. Malcolm didn't try to comfort me either. He just sighed. "Oh, senior sister, then I'm in trouble. Now there's a project at a crucial stage of tackling key problems. But we've been working hard for a year and still have no direction. I was thinking that this is exactly your main research direction before. As soon as you come, we can solve it." I could tell the deliberate joking in his words, but the heaviness in my heart still dissipated a bit. However, I still had to say the unpleasant words. After all, in these 10 years, apart from doing laundry, cooking, and taking care of the child, I hadn't learned anything new. The only thing engraved in my bones was that no one needed me. Gerald was like this, and so was Jeffrey. Even my own parents were the same. Rather than making the professor and Malcolm embarrassed later, it was better to make things clear now. The current progress has advanced so much compared to before, and I'm no longer the same as I used to be. "Malcolm, you'd better not." Malcolm stopped the car and stared at me seriously. "Helen, don't think that I'm just saying polite words, or think that the professor is pitying you. There's only one reason for you to come back. You play an indispensable role in the Institute's project. Even after 10 years, your knowledge is still there. You're still our most talented senior sister. You have to believe that you deserve it." The certainty and sincerity in his words hit me in the chest. I was so stunned that I couldn't say anything. Could it be that someone actually needed me? They needed me just because of who I was. Tears rolled down uncontrollably. Meeting Malcolm's expectant gaze, I nodded firmly. "I also believe that I can do it. And I deserve it." Malcolm smiled. "Helen, this is the you that I know. I've sorted out the materials from the past few years in the accommodation arranged for you. While you're catching up on the progress, you can also recover from your injury. If you don't understand anything, come and ask me. Don't be afraid to trouble me." Outside the car window, those somewhat unfamiliar foreign scenes gradually became familiar again. I remembered when I was doing my PhD, I took Malcolm to climb the tallest building in this city, overlooking the prosperity of this city. I asked Malcolm, "Do you believe that I can change the world?" Before Malcolm could answer, I shouted towards the night sky, "I definitely will. Yes, I definitely will." The wish I made when I was young is now waiting for me to fulfill it. The days of catching up on the progress and learning new things were very busy, but I didn't feel tired at all. After Malcolm caught me staying up late to read the materials several times, he directly moved next door to me to supervise me. "Helen, with this way of yours, how can your leg get better?" I had no choice but to follow the regular schedule under his supervision. I also had to go for walks in the park from time to time. Malcolm also had his reasons. Breathing fresh air is helpful for generating inspiration. Even the 3 meals a day were all taken care of by him. At first, I thought it would be good enough if he could cook noodles and fry an egg. But what was placed in front of me was a meal of 4 dishes and 1 soup that looked and smelled delicious. And they were all my favorite dishes. Although I was surprised, I didn't think too much about it. After all, there weren't many delicious foods abroad. Even my cooking skills were honed when I was studying abroad. At that time, Malcolm used to mooch off my meals every day. I guessed that he just cooked the dishes that I often made back then. Taken care of by Malcolm, my leg recovered quickly. After more than a month, I could walk on the ground, but except when I was doing rehabilitation exercises, Malcolm still made me sit in a wheelchair. It takes 100 days to recover from an injury to the muscles and bones. What's more, you were so seriously injured and must rest for a longer time. I couldn't find any words to refute him. I was just thinking that this was what it felt like to be cared for by someone. No wonder Gerald didn't want to let me go even though Ashley had come back. In fact, during the past 10 years, the care and attention I gave him could be described as meticulous. This thought flashed through my mind for a moment and then was thrown to the back of my head. There were still so many academic materials to read. Those people weren't worth my time and effort. They didn't even deserve a single thought from me. Just as I was all prepared and about to officially return to the research institute, Gerald blocked the door of my house. He also brought Jeffrey, who was crying his eyes out. As soon as I opened the door, Jeffrey rushed up and hugged me. You're a big badass. How could you run so far away? Dad and I have been looking for you for a long time. Do you know that? I was speechless and looked down, gently pushing Jeffrey away. Don't do this. I don't like children. Jeffrey stood there in a daze, his face full of disbelief. Indeed, in the past, I had never refused any of his requests, not to mention saying something like I didn't like children. Jeffrey wrinkled his nose, and big tears rolled down his face. You weren't like this before. I didn't even look at him. You said it yourself. That was in the past. Facing my coldness, Gerald didn't scold me. Instead, he coaxed me softly. Helen, I know you're still angry. If you're not happy, just scold him a few more times. It's all this brat's fault for being so reckless. He hurt your body and your heart, which drove you away. Punish him well. When you've cooled down, come back with us. Listening to his senseless words, my expression became even colder. Are you two father and son deaf? When did I ever tell you that I wanted to go back? After I refuted him several times, Gerald finally became unhappy. All right, there's a limit to throwing a tantrum. You left without a word, and Jeffrey and I even came all the way abroad to find you. What else do you want? In the past 10 years, I had endured so many cold words and looks. But now, with just one word from me, Gerald couldn't take it anymore. I was too lazy to pay attention to him and pushed him aside to leave. Malcolm had gone to the research institute early, saying that he wanted to prepare a welcome ceremony for me. I couldn't let down his kindness. But Gerald grabbed me. Sorry, Helen, I didn't react in time just now, so I spoke to you like that. Yes, over the past 10 years, he had gotten used to sneering at me, but the apology and the show of weakness now were also things I had never seen before. As proud as Gerald was, he had never bowed his head for anyone, even for Ashley. He had never admitted his fault. However, I didn't care about these things now. I coldly shook off Gerald's hand. Don't waste your time on me. There's already one mistress in your house. Ashley, why do you have to bring me a burden back? During the past half year, I thought that Ashley should have reconciled with him long ago, and Jeffrey had also found his long-awaited biological mother. But now, Gerald fell into an eerie silence, and Jeffrey sniffled and started crying again. She ran away. She cheated Dad out of his money and ran away again. She also swindled all of Grandpa and Grandma's family property. As he cried, Jeffrey rolled up his sleeve and revealed his still bruised arm. Look. She also hit and scolded me. She said I'm just a debt collector and not as good as her child with Uncle Shin at all. Sorry, Mom. I was wrong. I didn't know it would hurt so much to be injured. It was all my fault back then. I shouldn't have pushed you. Gerald also took out a ring with red eyes and knelt down on one knee in front of me. Helen, I just realized who is truly sincere to me now. Come back. I'll give you a marriage 10 times grander than Ashley's and make you the legitimate my wife. The things I had longed for were all presented in front of me, but I suddenly felt bored. I even felt a bit disgusted. So, 10 years hadn't won me their true feelings, but just half a year of comparison made them realize my goodness. This kind of change of heart only made me feel nauseous. Without even looking at them, I turned around and left. I don't have the hobby of collecting secondhand trash. Oh, no. If you think about it carefully, you two are already third-hand. Gerald was about to chase after me, but the security guards downstairs came and stopped him. When I arrived at the research institute, I was a few minutes late. I apologized with regret, and fortunately, everyone didn't mind. When they heard that someone had blocked my way, they all gave me suggestions one after another. Malcolm also frowned. It seems that the security there is not good. All sorts of people can get in. I'll take you to move tomorrow to prevent those irrelevant people from harassing you. Just as I was about to speak, Gerald's voice came from behind me. I'm her husband. How am I an irrelevant person? Gerald's eyes were full of anger. He stared fixedly at Malcolm. So, it's because of this pretty boy that you abandoned me and the child. Malcolm also turned cold. He first sent his colleagues away and then said to Gerald, show some respect. Gerald became even angrier. You're seducing my wife, and you still have the nerve to ask me to show respect. Malcolm was so angry that he laughed. Is she your wife? Do you have a marriage certificate? Gerald didn't give in at all. She has lived with me for 10 years. I've seen every part of her. Isn't she my wife? Pretty boy, I'm telling you, this is called a de facto marriage. The relationship between me and her isn't something that can be decided by just a piece of paper. As soon as he said these blatant words, I felt extremely embarrassed. Yes, those 10 years were the time that I couldn't erase. When I talked about it with Malcolm and the others usually, it was just a few words, but now he had torn off that fig leaf. He exposed all my most embarrassing past in front of others. But Malcolm didn't show the slightest bit of disgust. He gave me a comforting look, stood in front of me, and blocked all of Gerald's gazes. Oh, then you're committing bigamy. As far as I know, you and Ashley haven't divorced, have you? Gerald's words were stuck in his throat. Malcolm continued unhurriedly. And I didn't ask you to show respect to me. I asked you to show respect to Helen. Is this how you usually make her feel embarrassed in front of others? Under such circumstances, how can you still say that she's your wife? I think you're more polite to your servants than to her. I was taken aback and looked at Malcolm's tall back. An indescribable emotion welled up in my heart. Gerald stammered for a long time and couldn't come up with a single word of refutation. Finally, he could only say dejectedly, I'll change. I'll treat Helen well in the future. I stepped forward and said firmly, but I don't want that. Gerald, I've already wasted 10 years on you. I don't want to continue anymore. Gerald looked as if he was about to collapse. I know, but, Helen, you have to give me a chance to make amends, just like I gave you. I was confused. What chance of making amends did you give me? Gerald looked at me deeply, his eyes full of complexity. Back then, you ran away on our wedding day. If it weren't for Ashley stepping in, I would have become the laughingstock of the whole city. I frowned deeply. Before I could figure out what he meant, Malcolm spoke up. Gerald stared at me in surprise, as if he didn't expect me to say such a thing. Back then, she gave up a project that was crucial to her future career in order to go back to you. She was even locked in the basement by her parents for a whole month. Go back and check carefully who tricked you back then. Gerald was stunned as if struck by lightning. Do you mean that Helen didn't abandon me? I didn't answer, but just said, it's all in the past. I just hope that you won't come to find me again in the future. Jeffrey understood and burst into tears. Mom, you can't abandon me. I squatted down for the last time and wiped the tears from his face. This is the last lesson I teach you. You have to take responsibility for your actions. After saying that, I turned around and entered the research institute. I didn't look back at the two dejected people behind me, perhaps out of guilt. They didn't show up again later. They did send a video of my parents' apology, but I turned it off after watching the beginning. The Research Institute also received a huge amount of research funding, which was specifically designated for me. I didn't decline and accepted it all. They owed me this in the first place. With the funding, the project progressed smoothly. On the day when we announced the research results and held a press conference, I gave a speech on behalf of the Institute. In the audience, the haggard Gerald held Jeffrey, and the two of them stared at me without blinking. But after the event ended, the two of them didn't come to find me. They just sent a bouquet of flowers. In the greeting card tucked in the flowers was the regular script that I had taught Jeffrey stroke by stroke. Mom, I wish you all the best and great success. There was also a small line of words next to it. And I'm sorry. This is the last time I call you Mom. You're right. You don't belong to me and Dad. I smiled softly and put the greeting card in my bag. The 10-year entanglement was finally over at this moment. From now on, it would be my brand new life.